Going back to my days as county supervisor, I had an idea of some of the needs that we had in our community and was trying to meet some of the needs that we had in the infrastructure. And so the public transportation, the buses, the light rail, the tower at Sky Harbor were things that we did.
You helped with public transportation,
Yes, we
did
did.
you not, in
Yes, we
getting
did.
some funding?
Because,
Have you ridden the light rail yet?
Yes, many times.
Have you?
Many
Good.
times. And now I was out in Mesa recently. We're going to extend the light rail out in Mesa.
Yes.
And we're going to extend the light rail to Northwest Phoenix. And it's one of the other things I'm working on is a commuter train.
Yes.
Between Phoenix and Tucson.
We need to do something about getting to Tucson.
Well,
Don't
we're
you
working
agree?
on we're working on a commuter train.
Well, I
and
think
so
that would be
hopefully
we have the tracks.
well, we have the tracks, and hopefully we have the land. We have the land, and so we'll have the willingness now to be able to do it. And so I think that providing services and programs, working with Arizona State, the U of A, NAU, to develop educational programs are all things that I've been involved in. But probably the thing that, without really knowing, people say, well, what's part of your legacy? I have probably restored more habitat in Arizona. Here, the Rio Salado, the Tres
Is that
Rios.
right? Yes.
In Tucson, Rio Chico, and
That's good.
in Yuma, the wetlands in Yuma. So
That's
without
really important.
well, it's something that I never really thought about doing, and before I knew it, we had it done. So
That's good.
sometimes you get into a situation without really
Yes.
knowing the consequence, and so habitat restoration has been something I have been very active in.
That's great. What changes do you see in Arizona's political landscape in the years that you've been
Well,
there? How do you see it?
I went into Congress, Bob Stump, Jim Colby, Jay Rhodes
Yes.
were some of the people that...
And they were all pretty good,
Oh, they were all
actually.
pretty good. They served their communities
Yes.
well. And at the time, in '91, probably the partisanship was not as heavy.
I don't think it was. Didn't you all work pretty well together?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I mean, I worked with the members of the delegation, and one of the things that I enjoyed through my political career is that many of my colleagues, whether Republicans or Democrats, that we wouldn't get into each other's battles
Right.
in the political campaigns. But that has changed.
And that's changed
Oh, it's
somewhat.
changed. I mean, you see now where colleagues are involved in independent expenditures and and you know, going against some of their colleagues. And you well know that in politics, members have long memories,
They
especially
do. I'm afraid they do.
and they have, and their
Yes.
egos are bruised, or they're,
Yes.
and so they remember things like that. And so,
Yes.
so yeah, I would say that that has probably caused more division and turmoil in terms of the delegation.
What changes in a political sense would you like to see for a community of Hispanic-oriented workers? And it's not the first time that it's happened in Arizona, and I don't know how we've dealt with it satisfactorily in the past, but what's your conclusion from Arizona's history?
Arizona, because of its closeness to the
Yes,
border, and
yes.
actually was part of Mexico for
Exactly.
Before the Gadsden Purchase
Right.
and Revolution, and we've had a Mexican population, and the Mexican community has been here and very active.
Yes.
But in the 30s, when we had the Depression, obviously the United States had a program of deportation. And so what happened, and I recall my family talking about it, how some of the people had to go. A railroad car just went through Morenci and Miami, Globe, Superior, into Phoenix. And the sheriff would come to your house and say, you don't have the proper papers, so get on the train. And
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But that was...
But that's what we did.
That's what families were taken, or families were separated. Interesting fact, a former congressman, Esteban Torres, was born in Miami, Arizona. And his father was one of the people that was deported. And then his mother and his grandparents moved to Los Angeles, and he became a congressman in California.
Is that right? How interesting.
So Miami, Arizona may have had two Hispanic congressmen.
Very interesting.
He still claims Miami as his hometown.
That's good.
And so, so you had separation.
Yes.
Today, with some of our immigration policies of self-deportation, are very similar. But obviously, we're going to need a workforce. We've needed a workforce for many years.
We do. So how are we going to deal with it?
Well, we're going to have to deal
What's
with.
your
Well, we're going to have to deal with
prediction?
a program that allows foreign workers to come,
Yes.
and with some order,
Yes.
where the employer is able to
Exactly.
identify and then be able to bring workers. We know who they are, where they're at, they're registered, and
Are we going to get it done?
yes, we are. I think we are. I think for political reasons and just economic reasons, we're going to get done.
We need to watch these days what's happening with any legislation or regulation of illegal aliens in the state. That seems to be quite a focus of attention.
Well,
have you taken positions
oh,
on
sure,
some
I
of
have.
that? What do you think we ought to be doing?
And probably at your ranch, you probably had Mexican work hands.
We had very few. That employees seldom changed. We had people who were there for 50 years.
But you had Mexicans that came and worked there.
For 50 or more years.
For 50 or more years, because you were able. Well, see, there's a demand, and there will be a demand in the future in Arizona and the nation, as our population we don't produce many young, and it's an aging population. We're going to need workers to come from other countries.
Right.
If you want to secure the border, people are coming over to look for work.
Yes, they are.
And our means of bringing them over is not legal. So if we create a system that says, all right, we're going to be bringing foreign workers, we're going to be fair to them, and we're going to know where they're at, what they're doing, then we secure the border.
Yes.
So once you bring a system that brings in people with some kind of order, then you're going to bring security to the border. That's a reality, but for whatever reason, we just don't want to face that reality.
It's a big issue that we need to face here.
Yes, we do.
In the Southwest,
and
I think.
it's just a matter of finding. So I'm for developing a immigration reform, a system that people can immigrate and be able to immigrate in the United States with some order. For the people that are here and have been here for a number of years, and if they're people that have behaved themselves, then I would move that gray cloud and ensure that they're able to stay here, and if legalize them in terms of being able to legalize their status, and then eventually, if they want to become citizens sometime in the future.
Yes.
But I'm very supportive for reform of immigration laws.
When I came to the House, I was a member of the Interior Committee, the most junior guy. Here's the most powerful chairman. This is a great story. And she literally took me to raise. And you know, I have to say now in these years that I really didn't know much about the issues of Arizona as far as land, water.
Well, you hadn't lived here.
I hadn't lived
didn't
here.
grow up here. Where did you grow up?
My father was in the Navy, so I grew
know.
up everywhere. So I'm a brand new member. I think I've been about 4 months in the House of Representatives, and Mo called me in one day and he said, I'm going to go to Casa Grande. We're going to have a big press conference. We're going to talk about all our plans for the Interior Committee and all the issues that affect Arizona and all that. He said, would you like to join me? I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to. So go to Casa Grande. All the media are there from both Tucson and Phoenix. And he said, and now on mining reclamation law, Congressman McCain and I are working on a new piece of legislation, right? And I'd say,
I guess so.
I did not have a clue.
What did you say?
What he was, I just nodded my head. Yes, absolutely. We're the whole time.
Very good.
But see, here's a liberal Democrat, a brand new member of Congress, a conservative member of Congress, and yet because of our Arizona tradition, he reaches out to me and literally took me under his wing. There was no benefit for Mo Udall to do that.
He
but
really
that
was a special guy.
And it was also a tradition of the Arizona delegation, small delegation, working together, Republican and Democrat. I'd like to tell you that's the same way today. It's
Is
not.
it? No.
No.
That's sad because it
very
was a
sad.
great tradition for our state.
Somebody asked me why it was that Arizona, a dinky little state with 1% of the nation's population, produced leaders like John Rhodes and Barry Goldwater and Ernest McFarland and Stu Udall and the others have been mentioned. And I said, seriously, I didn't know, but I thought it had something to do with the civilized kind of brand of politics. You go to some states and your opponent is automatically a thief and a crook, and There's little respect for the other side, and I've had a civilized relationship with Barry, you, and John Rhodes, and all the people we mentioned. And I think that's probably the explanation, if there is one. I think the other thing that made our state the way it is we can laugh together and laugh at each other and laugh at ourselves.
Well, that's not as bad as being beaten by Lyndon Johnson.
And we're going to have a separate debate on that subject, too.
Now, you came here not knowing much about Arizona, and you put your hat in the ring right away. Yep. Now, what led you to do that?
Well, I talked to several people out here in Arizona. My wife, Cindy, is Arizona born and raised, and I was unable to stay in the Navy because I couldn't pass my flight physical anymore. And so, make a long story short, it came out, and John Rhodes had announced that he was retiring.
Yes.
And so
when
foolishly
did you
at the
develop
time,
a political
I just went around and knocked on doors and did the things that the drudge work. I still believe the reason why I won the House race was two reasons. One, it was a very divided primary, and second is because I knocked on 10,000 doors. Today, 30 years later, I still meet people who say to me, I voted for you. I didn't know anything about you, but you came to my house.
That's amazing. But you also are the only genuine certified war hero that our state has ever had. I mean, you were incredible.
Well, yes, and I think people appreciate that.
Well, I hope so.
But that doesn't, you got to give them a reason to vote for you. Too many people you and I have known who've had significant accomplishments figure that therefore they will.
That entitles them.
Yeah, people thank you for your service, but they want to know what you're going to do for them. And that was, I think, something that was important. But the personal contact in a campaign like that was the reason why I was able to succeed. And then, of course, I knew that Barry was that was the end of his.
Yes.
And
but
so
was
I was
he
very
a help
fortunate.
to you?
Yes, Barry
Yes.
was very helpful to me.
And I built out of sun-dried adobes made out of the Salt Riverbed in Tempe.
Yes, indeed.
What we try to do in this house is to remind people working in government and for government that civil talk should lead to civic action. And it seems to me things have been a little less than civil, both at the local, state, and national levels lately. Do you see that? Is there a change?
I think there has been a significant change. I think that we've become more polarized.
Too.
The approval rating of Congress is now at 11%. I have not met anyone in the 11% bracket lately. And if I do, I want to ask them why they approve of us. What is it that?
What is it we've done right?
How did they get into that 11%? So,
But in those same polls, the Supreme Court had been quite high historically on those ratings, and it also has dropped lately.
I have the greatest respect for the United States Supreme Court, but the Citizens United decision has unleashed a flood of money that I promise you there will be major scandals. There's too much money. One of the things that there are many things that I regret about your decision to leave the court when you did, although I certainly respect it and admire it, was that you were one of the only people that ever actually ran for public office.
Yes.
And you had a better understanding of what elections are about.
Well, today judges are drawn from a different area. In the early days of the country, the Supreme Court members had been governors and this, that, and the other thing. Not any longer. That's changed. You're right.
When Kennedy became president, he appointed the best and the brightest to his cabinet, McNamara and Rusk and all these people. And they came to Lyndon Johnson and said to him, "What do you think about all these people? Boy, they're just all the best and the brightest people." And he said, "I just wish one of them had run for county sheriff. I just wish one who had run for county sheriff." Isn't it true that you and Justice Rehnquist were the last two that had any real political involvement?
I guess he was active at the local level, certainly, when he was practicing law here.
But you were the only one that had actually been in a political campaign.
Out there in the hustings. Yeah, that's true. Now, I visited Vietnam, and I went to the cell that they told me you had been occupying for a time. And it was a very moving experience. I couldn't even imagine how you came out of that, to tell you the truth.
You know, one of the things, the major factors, is the bonds and strength that we extended to one another. The Vietnamese kept us, a lot of us, in solitary confinement for a long period of time.